Hello, and welcome to my PowerPoint presentation about the lore of the Metroid series poorly explained, along with a tangential retrospective. Okay, so the galaxy is governed by the Galactic Federation. I will hereby be referring to them as either the Space Police or the Feds. The other three factions you'll need to know about are the Chozo, the Space Pirates, and the Bounty Hunters, also known as the Space Hunters in the early translations of the English manuals for the NES. The Space Pirates are, get this, pirates that happen to be in space. And the Chozo are this ancient race of bird people that the games never really decide if they're either still alive, still active, or known to still be alive and or active. And then the bounty hunters are literally exactly that. They kill shit for money, but they're also kind of more like superheroes because they carry the Federation soldiers literally all the time. They'd be nothing without them. The main character throughout our story will be the bounty hunter Samus Aran. Okay, so there was this manga that was released in 2003 that explains the origin story of Samus, and it's never really explained if it's canon or not, but it's kind of all we have to go on. Like, the games occasionally explain bits and pieces of Samus's backstory, and we get like the big picture of it, but all the major details, specific characters that existed and stuff is only in the manga, so we're just gonna count it. So Samus was a nepo baby because her father Rodney Aran was a high-ranking member in the Space Police, but he dead as hell. So Rodney Aran and his family were assigned to this one space colony the Space Police were working on, and then one day the Space Pirates showed up and Samus's parents got hit with the whip Nene. So this big dragon dude named Ridley, who's way too big for Smash Brothers, showed up, and being the edgelord that he is, he immediately tried to kill baby Samus, but her mom jumped in and went down Mr. President and took the blow for her. So then Rodney, knowing that the battle was a loss, blew up a bunch of fuel that they were mining there, destroying the loot the pirates were after, and killing himself and Ridley at the same time. Lol JK, because Ridley fucking ate her dad to regenerate his body somehow. Okay, so then everyone else in the colony is dead and the space pirates left, so there's just like a baby Samus stranded on a random fucking planet. Luckily for her though, the Chozo showed up. The 10-foot-tall bird aliens then raised Samus for 15 some odd years, during which Samus was given combat training, was, quote, infused with Chozo DNA to increase her physical prowess, not in a sexy way I promise, it gets explained later in Metroid Dread, and gifted with the Power Suit, a powerful set of Chozo armor and weaponry with the ability to be upgraded by other Chozo technologies. Basically, it's a mech suit that can have software updates to become stronger. Drip check. Okay, so at some point, Samus grows up and she eventually fucks off from the Birdland, I guess. They never really explain why or how or when. An unspecified amount of time later, she joins the Space Police and ranks up very quickly because she fucking cheats with the power suit. Samus then channels her daddy issues onto Commander Adam Malkovich, who becomes a father figure to her. He's also low-key sexist and ended every briefing by saying any objections, lady, at Samus since she was the only woman under his command. And then Samus was just like an angry teenager or something, because instead of doing the thumbs up like all the others at the end of the briefing, she did a thumbs down, lol. Now that I think about it, this scene from Other M kind of implies that Samus literally never gave a thumbs up or any kind of verbal confirmation to Adam ever. Like, how did this not get her in trouble while she's in the Space Police, right? Like, she never verified anything in the briefings, ever. And Adam would just be like, haha, the thumbs down is okay for her, I guess that means it's alright, so we can just go do our thing we were gonna do. Like, did Adam never get in trouble that someone under his command never, like, verified anything he said, and then he still sent them off to battle or whatever? Anyway, so we get a time skip. At some point, Samus quit the Space Police because she became the best bounty hunter ever because plot. Also, like, the Space Police commission the bounty hunters or some shit. Like, Other M establishes that when Samus left, she's no longer part of the Galactic Federation and, like, no longer under anyone's command. That's why she's a solo bounty hunter. Except practically every other game is some kind of mission that she is sent on specifically by the feds. So I guess Samus is just good enough that she's allowed to do whatever the fuck she wants, but still does stuff for them because she's getting paid. Honestly, respect the hustle. Anyways, they task Samus with going to planet Zebes to destroy Mother Brain, a powerful organic supercomputer lady thing that the Space Pirates have. It's never really explained whether or not Mother Brain is just literally a brain in a jar that does stuff for the pirates, or if she's like a conscious being. And if she is she supposed to be like a high-ranking commander for the pirates, or is she just a tool that they made? I don't know, they never say. Upon exploring the planet Zebes, Samus is pretty fucking lucky that it also was inhabited by the Chozo at some point, so she's able to collect a bunch of items to upgrade her power suit while there. This does also beg the question how she was able to rise to become the strongest bounty hunter in the galaxy with the incredibly weak set of armor that she had at the beginning of this game. Like, this is the first official mission that we get to see her do as a solo bounty hunter. Somehow with the tiny pea shooter she has, she was able to become the best in the galaxy. The standards must have been pretty fucking low. On planet Zebes, she also finds the titular Metroids, and discovers that Mother Brain was organizing a plot to clone/breed the Metroids to be used as a bioweapon by the Space Pirates. Metroids only actually exist in their most iconic form, the floating jellyfish head with teeth, as a larva. They aren't just good bioweapons by eating your brain goop. Their adult forms have the power to drain the life and energy of anything around them, siphoning it to make themselves stronger. Like mentioned before, Ridley fucking ate Samus's dad while on fire, and somehow that was able to heal him, so he's back alive. He then promptly dies. I want to take this time to mention that Ridley can talk in the manga, but in the 2D games, he mostly just roars and acts like a monster, despite it being said that he's a commander of the space pirates. In the Prime games, he acts more intelligent, but like how smart or conscious he actually is varies from game to game. Sometimes he's just a kaiju-inspired monster for Samus to fight, other times he can talk, other times he can't talk but he's kinda smart. Samus wins, she blows up Mother Brain, the Metroid plot is foiled, that's kind of it. Look, it was 1986, honestly this game had more story than most other games did at the time. So also in Metroid 1, the Varia suit upgrade is displayed as just like a palette swap with a regular suit, but in Metroid 2 on the Game Boy they added these shoulder pad things to differentiate them because it was all in black and white. But then at the end of Zero Mission, Samus gets the Varia suit with the shoulder orb things. So there's like an in-universe reason why the Varia suit looks different in the Prime games onward in the timeline. This then brings us to the events of the Metroid Prime games. The overarching plot of the Prime games can basically just be squished into a flip note between the events of Zero Mission and Metroid 2. Like, a whole lot of drama happens, but really all that the conclusion really is that Samus is like, okay, Metroids are really bad. Something interesting to note here is that the Metroid series sold very poorly in Japan, which led to there being no Metroid releases during the N64 era after the completion of Super Metroid. However, the Metroid games saw great success in the West, and the popularity of the character of Samus Aran was kept due to her presence in the original Super Smash Bros. The Metroid Prime games were developed by Retro Studios, an American company based in Texas. Because of this, the Prime games were developed in English and released in the West several months before they did in Japan. For nearly a decade, one of Nintendo's most iconic first-party characters had their games developed and released in the West far before they were released in Japan. Anyway, so Metroid Prime. Samus gets a distress signal from the frigate Orpheon, but upon arriving she finds it was actually a space pirate ship. The pirates sent out the signal after they lost control of the monster they were working on as another bioweapon. And because of fucking course she does, Samus finds Ridley on the ship. He was salvaged and rebuilt by the pirates, being saved by being turned into a cyborg. Meta Ridley. So Samus blows up the weird monster thing on the ship that she got a distress signal from. Ridley flies off and goes down to the planet the Orpheon was orbiting, Talon 4. And Samus is super fucking lucky yet again because Talon 4 was also a Chozo colony at some point, so she can buff up her suit again. On Talon 4, Samus discovers Phazon, a powerful substance which the pirates were infusing into bioweapons to make them even more powerful. So basically, Metroid Prime did Azurite 16 years before WoW did. Like, it's kinda just the same thing. It's the planet's lifeblood as a substance. Its power can range from just being an explosive, just like Azurite, or being the most mystical powerful thing in the universe, and the entire Prime series revolves around it. Metroid Prime is just battle for Azeroth in space. Although Phazon isn't the lifeblood of Talon 4, it's the lifeblood of Planet Phase, but we'll get there. Okay, it's not the exact same as Azurite, it's more goopy. It's shown to make tumors in other planets, it corrupts materials and organisms it touches, and it has a mind of its own. In later Prime games, it's explained how the Planet Phase is like an organic creature that produces pods called Leviathans with the sole purpose of crashing into other planets to infect them with the tumors of Phazon, and oh my fucking god, this is just the same plot as the old gods. On Talon 4, Samus discovers the titular Metroid Prime, a Queen Metroid infused with Phazon. This Metroid, along with the Phazon itself, was known as the Worm to the ancient, now long dead Chozo that lived on Talon 4. On her travels in Talon 4, Samus also gains the Phazon suit upgrade, granting her immunity to Phazon attacks. Right before Metroid Prime is killed by Samus, it lashes out and fucking somehow rips the Phazon suit upgrade off. In its dying breath, Metroid Prime infuses the suit with Phazon and gives rise to Dark Samus. If the player of Metroid Prime gets 100% of all the items and scans in the game, they are rewarded with a cutscene of Dark Samus being born. Oh, also Samus kills Ridley again. And this brings us to the events of Metroid Prime Hunters and my rant about this game. So Prime Hunters happens between the events of Metroid Prime 1 and Metroid Prime 2. The game is only really called a Prime game since it was a first-person shooter Metroid game. The plot is completely irrelevant to the rest of the Prime games, well, until Metroid Prime 4 in 2025, and even to the Metroid timeline as a whole. It's only really said to be between Prime 1 and 2 because Samus' ship looks like it does in Prime 2, but her armor looks like it did in Prime 1. And this game is plagued by the era it existed in. It came out for the DS in 2004 and was marketed with the intent of making Metroid an online competitive shooter, since the Prime games were Nintendo's only foot into the FPS market at the time. The problem with this is that Nintendo's management at the time, and I mean even now, but they did better starting with Splatoon, has no fucking clue what that demographic is like or how to make it work. Metroid worked great in first person for 3D, but not as a multiplayer game. There was like a shitty versus multiplayer in Prime 2 because they were forced to add it just to try to appeal to that market. Nintendo Wi-Fi connection has also long since been discontinued, making the main selling point of this old DS game completely unplayable. So basically the feds intercept a radio signal or Samus retrieves said signal telepathically because plot from the Alembic system, mentioning some ultimate power. Samus is sent to investigate and retrieve the power so she and the feds have control over it, or destroy it if containing it is impossible. Samus must fight several other bounty hunters who also sought to claim the power for themselves, having received the message telepathically. The plot of this game really only existed at the time to set up the existence of the other bounty hunters since they were also playable characters in multiplayer. It's kind of still true today, but the plot also exists to set up the lore of the bounty hunter Psylocke specifically, who will probably be having a major role in the upcoming release of Metroid Prime 4. So it turns out that the ultimate power message was a trap, or a trick. Shocking, I know. The power was actually this eldritch being called Gorilla, not gonorrhea, Gorilla, that was contained and sealed away. I find this kind of hilarious because this is yet another detail of Metroid's story that the World of Warcraft team totally could have lifted from. An eldritch being that telepathically communicates with chosen champions in an attempt to use their power to free itself. Like Yogg-Saron, Bizoth, Ajara. Anyways, Samus kills everybody, that's the end of the game. Oh yeah, also the DS, kind of fucking sucked at 3D games. I mean, some of them are good, but, the original DS was great, but until the 3DS came around, 3D environments on portable consoles looked really pixelated, shitty, and blocky. Basically, it looked like a grainy filter was put over an N64 game. So what you're left with is a forgotten game with multiplayer that's impossible to access, shittier designed environments to other games because of the console's limitations, and a game that's just plainly awful to look at. Prime Hunters just didn't work. The game's design simply couldn't be supported by the original DS, and overall it was just a poor attempt at making Metroid a competitive multiplayer FPS to compete with Halo at the time. But Metroid was simply never meant to be that. The one good thing I'll say about it is that it did the touchscreen aiming stuff really well, like a decade before Kid Icarus did it. Which then brings us to the events of Metroid Prime 2. You ever played A Link to the Past? It's that. The end. Okay, fine, so Samus is told to go check on the space police squad that's stuck on some planet called Aether. She gets there, and whoop-de-fucking-do, they're all dead. Upon further exploration, Samus finds Dark Samus, who's out here fucking shit up for everyone. She also meets a giant fucking Mothman named Umos, who explains to her how the Luminoth people were corrupted or killed by the dark power of the other form of the planet. Basically, Dark Samus is here trying to help the Ing, the monsters from Dark Aether, escape and fuck shit up everywhere else. We stop her. The end. The plot of Prime 2 is pretty inconsequential, but it does serve to establish that Dark Samus is out here and traveling around trying to fuck shit up and start chaos. The Luminoth are also shown to be really powerful and advanced just like the Chozo. Their upgrades even work with Samus's power suit, but they're also literally never seen again in any other game, so some clarifications about Prime 2. Dark Samus is Metroid Prime. It is the embodiment of the Phazon hive mind and the vindictive energy of Metroid Prime against Samus. It has the memories of Metroid Prime and the battle it had with Samus in Prime 1. Dark Samus is also an it, not a she. We stand agender non-binary representation. Planet Aether has two versions, one light and one dark. Samus shifts between these just like A Link to the Past because of dumb plot stuff in the Luminoth lore that's never explained further. And the space police were sent there in the first place because there were space pirates fucking around with, you guessed it, Metroids chilling out on that planet. Then we move on to Metroid Prime 3. Samus makes friends. They all die. Samus gets cancer. The end. So the space police hire a bunch of bounty hunters including Samus to do some shit and kill some pirates. But on literally their first mission together, Dark Samus shows up, working with the pirates. Samus is able to stop Dark Samus before it fucking blows up the entire space police station, but she and her friends are all knocked out. Upon waking up, all the other hunters are missing and Samus has cancer. So basically, Dark Samus knocked them out with some kind of Phazon fuckery, and the Phazon corrupted all the other hunters, putting them into the Phazon hive mind. We kill them later. But the space police gave Samus some kind of special suit that controls the Phazon infection a little. It prevents her from fucking dying, and it also gives her the ability to go into hyper mode and be buff as fuck with Phazon. But this constant exposure to Phazon also only further worsens her condition. Oh, also Ridley's back. It's Meta Ridley 2. Electric Boogaloo. They rebuilt him. Again, I guess. Whatever, we kill him in the first hour of the game. I could go over the plot step by step, but what's the point? Basically, Metroids plus Phazon. Again, lol. I mean, there is the pretty pink lady named Gandrea. She calls Samus Sammy, and they have kind of weird sexual tension. I like them. I ship it. There's also the part where we intersect a Leviathan seed spreading Phazon and kill it before it fucks up a planet. That was pretty pog. We go to planet Phase. Technically it's spelled Phase, but fuck off. We kill Dark Samus in the core of the planet and then try to run back to the ship before it goes boom, which, by the way, every Metroid game has a run to the ship before the place goes boom at the end. And then all the Phazon is gone. That's it. All your friends die, but we win in the end. Oh yeah, Ridley's fucking back again in the same fucking game. This time he's reanimated from the dead by Phazon because plot. Also, he's called Omega Ridley. Okay, so Phazon is gone. When the planet died, so did the substance. After the Phazon threat was dealt with, Samus made a realization. There were two things constantly showing up in the Prime games. Phazon and Metroids. She killed Phazon, now she has to kill the Metroids. Which brings us to Metroid 2. See what I mean? We could have just skipped right to this slide. The Prime games are amazing, but their plot is kind of inconsequential in the grand scheme of things. Also, with the Phazon being completely gone, and there not really being anything that happens between Prime 3 and going right into Prime 2, I really don't know what they're going to do with Prime 4. The Prime games are basically the Phazon trilogy, but with Phazon completely gone, I feel like Prime 4 is probably just going to be called Prime because it's a first-person shooter game, not because it really has anything to directly do with the plot of these games. I mean, Psylocke is in it, so it'll have something to do with Prime Hunters, I guess. I don't know. Maybe it'll actually come out this year. It's December 31st when I'm recording this. How much you want to fucking bet they cancel Prime 4? Again. Oh yeah, I guess this game happens too. Federation Force. Nothing happens, who the fuck cares, it's literally just a group of space police killing some pirates, whatever. Federation Force had mixed reviews when it was released. It's not necessarily a completely shit game, however, it's the principle of its existence which is the problem. Like, look at the trailer for it. This fucking game came out in 2016, and the trailer was dropped in 2015. At this point in time, the most recent Metroid game was Metroid Other M in 2010, which we'll fucking get to, believe me, which was not exactly anyone's favorite game. It wasn't awful, but it simply just wasn't the kind of gameplay that Metroid fans were looking for. And prior to that was Metroid Prime 3 in 2007. There was a content drought for years in the Metroid fanbase. And when Nintendo threw us a bone, they gave us a shitty side story game that had no gameplay in common with the main series and didn't even have the main fucking character in it. After Prime 3, we waited 3 years for a game that just wasn't shit, but wasn't a traditional Metroid game. And then we waited another 5. A silent 5 years. And then we were handed, yet again, not what we asked for. It wasn't awful, it was bad, I mean, not the worst thing ever, but it just wasn't a Metroid game. It was a kick in the groin. In 2017, the 2D Metroid game's development was handed off to Mercury Stream, and after that we had amazing content ever since. But 2008 to 2016 was a dark time for Metroid games. Metroid 2, Return of Samus / Samus Returns. Okay, so Samus is like, alright, let's kill all the fucking Metroids, so she goes to SR388, which is the homeworld of the Metroids. The entire game is just us running around the planet killing every single Metroid we see, which happens to just be like 40 of them because it was originally a Game Boy game. However, in the remake on the 3DS, Ridley's fucking back! He's only referred to as Ridley in this game, but he has metal stuff on him, so we can kind of infer that he was probably rebuilt into Meta Ridley again. Anyways, he dies. Upon killing every single last known remaining Metroid, Samus finds a Metroid egg. The egg hatches and the larva Metroid sees Samus and thinks that she is its mother, which, first of all, cute. But secondly, the fact that the Metroids would behave like fucking ducklings, kind of makes no sense when you think about it. The anatomy of a Metroid larva is one giant cell with a mouth and teeth designed to attach to any prey and suck out their life energy and blood to nourish the larva. Basically, they come out of the egg ready to fucking kill. Baby ducklings and most, mammals and birds don't. Hence imprinting onto their mother so they can be cared for. This bothers me so much. I love this story, it's so cute, it's so sweet, but just think about it. Nothing about a baby Metroid would imply that it would need to follow a caretaker. Samus can't bring herself to kill the baby Metroid because of its childlike nature and it imprinting on her, but she knows full well that she can't just let it roam free, so she brings it to a Galactic Federation research facility. Basically, how we still have smallpox alive and 2 vials in the world? It's the same idea. For the rest of the story, the last Metroid is referred to as the baby, regardless of its current age or life stage. Also in Samus Returns, the baby Metroid follows you around and helps you find the remaining power-ups before fighting Ridley to 100% the game. There are these blue crystal things that only the baby Metroid can break, or eat, I guess? Why is it that a tiny baby Metroid can break these rocks by crunching them up, but everything else in Samus's arsenal can't? Power bombs? Nah. Teeth. I thought of this image after I beat this game. Okay, so no, I'm not fucking kidding. An hour after she gives the baby Metroid to the scientist, the research facility sends out a distress signal. Fucking pirates are stealing the baby. Oh, also fucking guess who took the baby? Fucking Ridley. In the span of 2 hours, he's alive again? How? Technically, there's nothing saying exactly how much time happens between Metroid 2 and Super Metroid, but, the opening scene of the game implies that it's, really shortly after. Any source online just says that Super Metroid takes place, quote, shortly after Samus Returns. The original explanation for how Ridley is back in Super Metroid after Metroid Prime 3 is that when Omega Ridley died, the Phazon was purged from his body, leaving the original organic Ridley again. Which, okay, fine, if he can eat her dad to live a fire, sure, that works. But then Ridley being alive again in the remake of Metroid 2 makes no fucking sense because of how short the time frame between Metroid 2 and Super Metroid is. But having him there in the remake also makes the timing make more sense. Ridley is able to swoop over to the research facility so quickly because he literally just saw Samus fly away with the baby Metroid. In the cutscene after you beat Ridley in Samus Returns, he doesn't, blow up, he just kind of lays there, so the only justification we have is that he just didn't die and Samus did a piss poor job at that time. He just yeeted the mechanical parts off, so now he's just organic Ridley again, cause plot. So Ridley takes the baby Metroid and fucks back off to planet Zebes. Samus follows and Super Metroid happens. Nothing of major note really happens during the core part of the game, it's just Samus running around Zebes and fighting pirates, but one thing that's interesting to note is the existence of Mocktroids. Basically, they're just failed Metroid clones. Essentially just this Family Guy clip but Metroids.
Oh, there you are, Brian. All right, you ready to meet your clone?
Am I ever? I've got a to-do list 3 pages long for him.
Okay, now I want to qualify this by reminding you that as with my clone, the intelligence level is reduced a bit.
That's good. We don't want him thinking too much.
Yeah, well, I might have dialed yours back a little more than I ought to have.
What do you mean?
Brian, meet Bitch Brian.
Hi, Brian. You got some stuff you want me to do for you?
Oh my god.
Yeah, that's kind of what I said, too. I'll be honest with you, Brian. Here's what happened. I didn't really want to do the work, so Bitch Stewie sort of did it.
Hey, Stewie, how'd the clone turn out? Brian, I can't go to the bathroom by myself. Will you please help me? But I'm good at other stuff.
Okay, so Ridley fucking dies again. And this time he's dead for real. Well, I mean, he's not. He does come back. But this time the original Ridley is dead for real. Any future iterations of Ridley do not have his memories and likely do not have the intelligence or ability to talk that the original Ridley did. Towards the end of the game, Samus discovers that the pirates intended to rebuild Mother Brain. She fights her the exact same way as the first game, but once she's defeated, she goes fucking sicko mode. Mother Brain grows some fucking legs somehow. It's never really explained, but our best guess is that these were augmentations that were intended to give Mother Brain autonomy, or like a body outside of her limitations as a computer. Mother Brain proceeds to hit Samus with the whip Nene and almost fucking kills her. But right when all seemed lost, the baby Metroid swoops in to save the day. Mommy wow, he's a big boy now, and he's here to fuck shit up. He attacks Mother Brain, draining the majority of her power, but Mother Brain manages to strike him down. As the baby's corpse tumbles to the ground, the power he had siphoned is transferred to Samus, granting her the Hyper Beam, which allows her to counter Whip Nene and kill Mother Brain. It turns out that Mother Brain's existence also supplied the pirates' base infrastructure and power, so now the planet is about to blow up and Samus scurries the fuck out of there. Which brings us to the events of Metroid Other M. Upon returning from her mission on planet Zebes, she is granted much praise and rewarded by the Galactic Federation for eliminating the threat of Mother Brain and the Metroids. She then leaves to go be a rogue bounty hunter like she normally is. While she's strolling around in space, she gets a distress signal coming from the bottle ship. The distress signal was a type of signal called a baby's cry, signaling helplessness and emergency. Get it? Isn't that so fucking clever? It's so fucking clever. Get it? Because the bottle, like a baby's bottle, and the signal is a baby crying, like it's the baby Metroid. Get it? It's the baby Metroid. It's so subtle detail. Other M is so subtle, and get it in the title, it's like Other M, like mother, if you move the M around, it's so subtle. Isn't the messaging so cool in this game? Upon arriving on the bottle ship, Samus runs into a squad of space police who also happen to receive the distress signal. And this squad just so happens to also be run by Adam Malkovich, the man who basically raised Samus during her time in the space police. Samus and gang start exploring and discover that the ship was actually a Federation ship experimenting with bioweapons. Said bioweapon creatures went wild and fucking killed everyone on board. Basically the same shit as with the frigate Orpheon in Prime 1. Adam dies. So does the whole squad. Also, Ridley's back! This time it's a clone of Ridley raised in captivity. The battleship was able to clone Ridley from the fucking blood and guts covering Samus' suit when she returned following the events of Super Metroid. We also get to see baby Ridley. The Ridley they grew started out as this cute fluffy thing, and then ate a bunch of dead people and grew into a dinosaur, and then the full daddy Ridley. And so begins my rant about Metroid Other M.
There's a lot to unpack here.
People did not like Metroid Other M. Well, I mean, they kinda did. The game received pretty good reviews, getting 3.5 stars on average and even some high ratings from some other game sites. The problem with this, however, is that Other M is not a Metroid game. The gameplay that exists is incredibly fun and action-packed, but there's little to no exploration and the game is incredibly linear. It also tried really fucking hard to be cinematic, which, I mean, isn't really that surprising, following the release and big success of cinematic drama games like Heavy Rain coming out the same year. The problem with this is that Metroid fans didn't want Ninja Gaiden plus Heavy Rain Metroid Edition. By the way, it was literally made by Team Ninja. They wanted Super Metroid in 3D. Which, by the way, the game also tried way too fucking hard to be Super Metroid in 3D without actually being Super Metroid in 3D. The gameplay was nothing like Super Metroid, but the game took every opportunity to be like, ooh, look, it's those enemies from Super Metroid, but in 3D, ooh! People also took issue with the portrayal of Samus. In this game, Samus spoke. A lot. In all the cutscenes. I think her actress did a great job, but many complained about her talking monotone and with little character. It was probably done to make her seem more cold and calculated, like how the silent protagonist route conveys her. The only problem is you can't try to be cold and calculating while also trying to show how trauma impacts emotions and while fucking crying the whole time.
The baby, and the baby, for the baby, of the baby, for the baby. Babies cry, babies cry.
Basically, people complained about Samus being an emotional wreck, but that isn't necessarily a bad thing. This game had a great opportunity to show how the trauma of losing the closest thing to a child Samus ever had, processing the sacrifice the baby made for her, and losing her father figure when Adam died affected her, but overall it was just done poorly. Samus also, cowers in fear and has, a PTSD panic attack when she sees Ridley in this game.
Samus, do you copy? Samus! Samus, use your plasma beam! What's your status?
And just why though? Yeah, he killed her parents and he's pretty big and scary, but she's literally killed him 7 fucking times by now. Some might argue that, well, she was weakened and in an emotional state because of the baby dying. But why would she have been weakened to cower in fear? Wouldn't it make more sense for her to, go in a rage, lash out violently, and kill Ridley? She could have been haunted by the fact that this monster plaguing her life just won't fucking die, but that wasn't the point. She doesn't cry out, he won't die, why won't he die? She simply cowers in fear at the sight of him. Again, incredibly flawed despite such potential. I think this could have been a great opportunity to put some psychological horror into this game. Samus's life up to this point has been incredibly tragic. She lost her parents at a young age and was slung into a solitary life, burdened by the responsibility of her power. Every time she's made any connection with any person, any other friend, any other father figure, something to take care of, they were violently torn away from her. Her life is a kind of living hell. The promise of companionship is dangled in front of her only for it to be cruelly taken away. Being in the lowest emotional state she's ever been in, seeing her devil, Ridley, was what broke her. But the focus in this scene has nothing to do with the rest of her trauma. It just calls back to Ridley killing her parents. Frankly, I don't see the loss of her parents as the core root of her trauma. Yeah, it sucked, but it happened so long ago and she's become such a strong person mentally and physically at this point. The true horror she experiences is that anything that attempts to love her meets an untimely demise. Think about the opportunity they had here. Instead of just crying about the baby Metroid and then hyperventilating at Ridley, they could have explained why she's so cold and monotone. She's unwilling to let anyone into her life out of fear of them being hurt. There could have been some big anime climax scene here. Samus goes into a monologue about how everything has been taken away from her entire life, and Ridley and his schemes were always at the root of it. Even in death, the specter of her devil still comes back to haunt her, but she won't bow down to her tormentor. She'll kill him again, no matter how many times it takes. Yeah, that's cliche, but isn't it better? Anyways, the game has problems other than just the narrative. So the Metroid games have this trend of starting the player out all buffed up, and then having Samus get injured or hit with some weird attack or whatever that takes her power-ups away from her and forces her to regather them along the way during the game. Other M does this too, but instead of having her lose them, she's simply told she's not authorized to use her upgrades by Adam while she's working with them. Okay, fine, maybe using fucking explosives in a group of other people can be dangerous, but he doesn't even let her turn on the Varia suit. You know, the upgrade that lets her not be fucking burned alive by lava until a solid 20 minutes into running around a fucking volcano area. Whatever, anyway, so she kills the Ridley clone and then she finds fucking Metroids again. It turns out that the space police were also trying to clone Metroids as a bioweapon on the bottle ship. They got the DNA from the goop on her suit, just like with Ridley. Oh, this is interesting. So maybe there's some political corruption plot that's gonna happen because the space police are trying to clone Metroids too? No. Nope. We just blow up the ship and they say, yep, no more Metroids. All gone. And then the game just completely ignores the fact that the government was trying to do the same fucked up shit the terrorists are trying to do. We just say, yep, we destroyed the one lab they were doing it at, and then we just trust them to never do it again. It wasn't the feds doing it, it was just some bad apple doctors. Oh, also there was some dumb plot point thing where the computer on the ship was Mother Brain 2 Electric Boogaloo, and they grew a human body for her. It's irrelevant to the rest of the series. I don't care. I'm done talking about this fucking game. The Galactic Federation be like,
no, these
Metroids.
It was just a goof. It was just for laughs, you know? Why aren't you laughing?
Which will lead us into Metroid Fusion. Sam is fucked up. So it turns out that the Metroids were the only natural predator to the X-parasites, which are these little goopy boys that collide with any organism and then kill them. They absorb their victim's DNA and morph their bodies to resemble the host. They will then use their new buff as fuck bodies to attack and kill even more powerful creatures to use as new bodies, growing exponentially stronger with each new victim. So because all the Metroids are dead, nothing can eat the X, so now they're roaming around free and killing shit. Samus goes to SR388 where all the X are fucking shit up, and she gets infected. The Space Police also somehow just have Metroid DNA on hand, again probably from the goop all over Samus' suit at the end of Super Metroid, and they inject it into her to grant her immunity to the X. However, they had to remove most of her suit to do so when the suit reformed, it was altered by her brand new Metroid DNA. Samus is now a human Chozo Metroid hybrid. She now has the ability to absorb and kill the X upon making contact with them. The X managed not only to take over all of SR388, but also follow Samus and the feds back up to the BSL research facility orbiting SR388. So Samus, as the only one able to kill the X permanently, is responsible for eliminating them. Some of the X managed to infect the scrapped parts of Samus' old suit. How do they infect metal? I don't know, man, just go with it. And they formed the SAX, a walking copy of Samus' old suit at full power. Ridley is back again. This time, he's just an X-parasite copying his DNA. This form is known as Neo Ridley. How did they have access to his DNA? Well, earlier in the game, prior to fighting Neo Ridley, Samus runs past a frozen corpse of Ridley. The best guess we have is that the same DNA that let the people on the battleship clone Ridley allowed the people on the research ship in Fusion to also clone Ridley. Doesn't matter though, because we kill him. But then this is also another instance of people in the Galactic Federation using DNA from Samus' suit to clone monsters as bioweapons. Like, it wasn't just the battleship. Why are you pretending that it's just the battleship? The X also tried to mimic multiple organisms at once, as well as other mechanical parts, leading to the most fucking horrific thing in the entire game. The boss, Nightmare. Who, by the way, is in Other M too, somehow. Like, Other M just put random enemies from Super Metroid in it because it wanted to be Super Metroid in 3D, so I guess, like, their intent was also just, hey guys, look, it's Nightmare from Fusion. But then the implication of this is that, like, the gooey bits inside Nightmare aren't just, like, the X copying multiple organisms and cramming it into the body of Nightmare, it's just, like, actually what it is. So, like, again, why is the Galactic Federation just creating monstrosities in the backyard and no one's saying anything about it? Oh, also, after Adam died, his consciousness got uploaded into a computer that also happens to be the same computer put into Samus' new ship. But he's also a dick about it and waits till the very end of the game in Metroid Fusion to tell Samus, hey sweetie, it's me, Dad. I make fun of it, but it's actually one of the most emotional scenes in the game. This scene on a GBA game done almost entirely through text was done better than all of Other M, by the way. Samus had monologues throughout this game about her new navigation computer behaving similarly to Adam and how she misses him, leading to her shouting out his name at the computer in a panic, which catches Adam off guard. Oh my god, the way that the music pauses right as she says it. Brilliant. After Adam is revealed and the collision course with SR388 is set, Samus encounters the SAX. She is able to fight it since she was buffed up by eating all the X throughout the game, causing it to become this motherfucker. But before she could absorb it, it escaped. Throughout the game, Samus runs into multiple empty Metroid larva chrysalises. Chrysalises? Google says chrysalises or chrysalides. That's cool. Which implies that the scientists on the BSL ship, just like on the battleship, attempted to clone Metroids. Again, we're just gonna ignore that the feds were clearly trying to clone Metroids. And as she tries to reach her ship and escape before the BSL collides with SR388, she's attacked by an Omega Metroid. The singular Metroid on board the ship had plenty of X to consume and grew very quickly. All hope seems lost when suddenly, Deus Ex Machina again! The SAX reforms and attacks the Metroid. It is killed and Samus is able to absorb the SAX. Doing so allows her to purge the fusion suit made of organic matter generated from her Metroid DNA, and she is able to form the original full-strength power suit once more. She kills the Omega Metroid and escapes. Samus genocides yet another species by literally fucking eating all of them alive, as well as blowing up the ship, crashing it into SR388, and fucking somehow a ship crashing into a planet also blew up the entire planet because plot. By this point in the series, Samus is an ancient bird god human Metroid hybrid capable of absorbing and instantly killing the X. She is 1, an abomination, and 2, is a unique weapon against the X, being the only one who is able to oppose them. So again, you're also telling me that the feds had one fucking vial of Metroid DNA left to make her immune to the X. Just one, but clearly had enough to clone a bunch of them on the battleship and the BSL ship. There's tons of setup for a political corruption plot where the space police are doing the same shit as the pirates, but it isn't addressed at all in Metroid Dread. So we'll likely have to wait another fucking decade for it to be addressed, or it just never will be. And last in our timeline is Metroid Dread. So the space police get a random video from space showing the X out in the wild. Video analysis proves the transmission is real, whatever the fuck that means. And so the space police send 7 EMMIs to ZDR. EMMI stands for Extraplanetary Multiform Mobile Identifier. They have powerful armor plating, making them virtually indestructible. They can hear their targets from several meters away through powerful echolocation. They can roll and contort themselves into small spaces just like Samus can with her Morph Ball ability. They can grip so hard that nothing can escape their grasp, and their faces have a stabby part in them that can pierce through almost any material. These bots were sent to grab any X-infested organism no matter how powerful, stab it in the face, and suck out its DNA for retrieval. Somehow all the Emmy just fucking stop working, so Samus is sent to ZDR to handle it because she's the only person who's immune to the X. As soon as Samus gets to ZDR, she gets hit with the whip Nene by some 10-foot-tall birdman who's pretty clearly a Chozo. She then wakes up after being choked out by him, but her suit is in a much more weakened state, and she lost all her shit again. She then quickly finds out that all of the Emmy on the planet are now hunting her DNA rather than the X's DNA, so they're trying to fucking kill her. On her travels, she occasionally finds these brain things that give her a powerful arm cannon for a bit that enables her to kill the Emmy. After journeying through ZDR for a while, Samus runs into a Chozo named Quiet Robe. Quiet Robe explains to her what the player has already inferred by this point, that Ravenbeak has hacked the Emmy to make them extract the Metroid DNA that remains within Samus's body so that he can clone an army of Metroids to use as a bioweapon. Then Quiet Robe gets fucking killed by a robot cause plot. Oh, and then the game shows the X infecting his corpse. Samus continues exploring ZDR, but then she accidentally finds the chamber where the X were. How did Ravenbeak have the X? I don't know, cause plot. Within a few hours, the X fucking killed all living organisms on the planet, and every enemy is now an X copy. Samus gets strong as fuck and then tries to go kill Ravenbeak. Along the way, she discovers her ability to make her arm go all fucking anime and kill anything that she touches. Adam, the computer, tells her that she is becoming more of a Metroid than a human. She now has the ability to drain the life of her enemies like a Metroid. Upon reaching Ravenbeak, he informs Samus that he is the Chozo whose DNA was infused into Samus, making her his daughter. Technically, I guess, I don't know. It's kind of like how Black Doom is technically Shadow's father. He then gives Samus one last chance to join him and give him the Metroid DNA on her own. Samus of course refuses, but Ravenbeak says that this was all planned. He wanted to allow Samus to complete her Metroid metamorphosis so that he can, quote, clone an army of the most powerful Metroid of all, Samus Aran. He chokes her out again, I guess he has a kink for it, and then she passes out and almost dies. But then... Samus completes her transformation into a Metroid, acquiring the Metroid suit, which grants her the permanent Hyper Beam. The same thing as from the end of Super Metroid. And causing any enemy she touches to die instantly. She hits Ravenbeak with the whip Nene, but then he gets infected by an X and turns into a gross monster, but she just blows him up too. Then the planet is about to blow up because plot, I don't really know how, but Samus intended to blow it up so all the X die. And then, while trying to escape, Samus rushes into her ship. Adam stops her from touching the control panel, saying that if she does, she will drain the ship of its energy. Then the X-infested corpse of Quiet Robe appears behind Samus. She points her arm cannon at him. And he bows. The X then rushes into Samus, removing the Metroid suit. The X are driven by a primordial desire to copy the most powerful creatures in existence, and use said gained power to absorb the next most powerful. In this moment, Samus has become the most powerful being in the universe. The ingenuity and determination of humanity, the divination and technology of the Chozo, and the raw energy siphoning power of the Metroids, amped up to its maximum. The X as parasites do not have the ability to speak. They likely don't even have consciousness or emotion, just the carnal desire to become more powerful. By absorbing Quiet Robe, the X gains the strengths of him, his perception. X Quiet Robe bows to Samus, recognizing that she is the strongest entity in the universe. There is no better fitting opponent. The X absorb anything they touch, but Samus destroys anything she touches. As they collide, these two cosmic forces cancel out, annihilating each other, leaving Samus in the regular power suit. And with that, our timeline comes to an end. Prime 4 is, supposedly, finally coming out this year. There's no room for Phazon stuff anymore after Prime 3, so it's likely that it's just going to be a Prime game in name since it's another FPS Metroid game. Psylux is probably going to be the main villain, and seemingly from the trailer, it's just going to be another Metroid bioweapon plot again. The Metroid series features a lot of repetition, and the timeline is structured in a way that leaves a big nebulous area between the events of Prime 3 and Metroid 2. Pretty much anything can be shoved there if they'd like. Metroids can be used as a tool of eco-terrorists an infinite number of times until Samus finally has enough of it and kicks off the events of Metroid 2. In a series with such repetition, Metroid Dread really stands out to me. Like, yeah, it does feature another new big villain trying to use Metroids for his own gain again, but it's unique. Space pirates are simple-minded, they just want to rule the galaxy through any means necessary. So does Ravenbeak, but he also seeks to do it by tampering with cosmological forces beyond his comprehension. Metroid Dread is probably my favorite in the series, and I think the best game on the Nintendo Switch. It has some voice acting in the made-up language for the Chozo, but most of the characterization is done through visuals. The expressiveness of Samus's eyes in the final cutscene is truly just phenomenal. Like, this game conveys emotion better than other M without using any words. Brilliant. My hope for the future of the Metroid series is that they finally acknowledge how the feds are obviously trying to clone Metroids too. Having Samus not just keep the ultimate power at the end of Dread frees up space for the struggle against the corruption to actually be entertaining and not just Samus blowing everyone up instantly. It'd be cool to see the Federation fleshed out more as more than just space police, and get into the politics of trying to govern all of space through any means necessary. This series is very near and dear to my heart, so thank you for listening to my ramblings about this story and bits and pieces of the history of the franchise. Even with its flaws, Metroid is a phenomenal series of games, and seriously, if you haven't played Dread, do it, now. It's up there with one of the greatest of its genre. Thanks for listening, and subscribe. Or don't. I'm not your mom, do what you want.